Hello YouTube, welcome to Termite Woodworks. Today this bookcase is going to get a facelift. It just doesn't quite match the rest of the furniture in the room. It's brown, the rest of our furniture is silver, and it's just kind of old and small. And I'm going to show you today how I went from this to this. And this furniture matches a little better with the furniture we have in the room. I wanted to take some of the key features that the furniture has, like the rounded edges, the molding at the bottom, and even the turned legs, and incorporate that into my build so that it all kind of looks like it matches. If you join me in the garage now, I'll show you how I did it. Alright, I'm not a big SketchUp guy, so I grab a piece of paper and a pencil and I sketch out some of the rough dimensions of my project. One of the dimensions that is not rough is the overall length. I'm making it 42.5 inches, and that's because I'm using these mirrors and I don't want to have to cut any of the mirrors, so I made them to an exact size so that the mirrors fit perfectly on the width. Next, I made this really rough mock-up here with some just junk from around the shop, just to get an idea of how everything goes together. Okay, so after my wacky planning that I like to do, I'm going to go ahead and rough cut these 2x4s, and I'm going to cut them 4 inches oversized. That way the planer slipe on the end, I can cut it off and throw it away. These boards are slightly twisted, so I'm just here using the joiner and the table saw to flatten them out and make them all nice and square. And I'm making all my rails and stiles nice and even so they all match. Then I take one of them to the bandsaw and I cut it in half. These are going to be my corner pieces that are going to be rounded over. Next step is to cut all the rails and stiles to their final length on the crosscut sled. Alright, so we got all our pieces cut up that are going to make up the face frame of the bookcase. So now we're going to use some plywood, we're going to cut it to length and cut the sides, and I'll probably just cut out the shelves while I'm at it. So I've been giving some thought how I'm going to join the face frame to the sides, and one of the thoughts was to just, pocket hole up in here. But I don't want, ugly pocket holes showing up on the inside of the cabinet. So my next thought is I'm going to do a tongue and groove system. I'm going to put a groove on the back side of this face frame piece, and then I'm going to put a tongue. I'm going to route a tongue into the plywood sides. And what I'm using for that is I have this router bit set from Summerfield Tools. It's for making cabinets, and it's got a grooving tool and a tonguing tool. So we'll go ahead and start doing that on the router table. I only get one shot at cutting the grooves, so before I do that, I like to take a piece of scrap and cut the tongue in here just as a test piece and see if my bit height's just right. Now I'm going to cross cut my face frame corner pieces and my sides, and here's a tip. Whenever you have multiple pieces in your project that are all the same size, set your machine up one time, cut them all at the same time, and that way you're sure that each piece is exactly the same. If you're going to try and come back and do another piece later, you'll never hit that mark exactly the way it is if you just did it all at one time. So this is the bottom piece, the front of my bookcase, and this is where I'm going to attach these mirrors. And if I just put the mirrors on here and glue them on, I feel like someone's going to rub past them and just, you know, knock the one off or something. So what I want to do is indent them into the wood, and what I'd like to do is cut like a maybe a 1/16 deep rabbit in here, as the British would say, a rebate, and theirs sounds better anyway. And the tool I think I'm going to use for this, I think I'm going to use the joiner and just let this piece of wood slid off the side. So here at the joiner, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and take off the safety guard. And I know the safety Nazis are going to come out of the woodwork and tell me how unsafe I am, but whatever, I understand the dangers. And that way I can, you know, hang this board just off the edge of the table. That way I'll get a little lip on the end that the little mirrors can scoot up underneath. So I put this auxiliary fence here because the normal fence didn't come over far enough to get me the depth of cut that I want. You can see here it's just barely off the edge right there, and that's going to give me a little 1/8 inch lip that I want. So here's the part of the project that I've been really concerned about. On my front corner pieces for the face frame, they have to be rounded over really hard, you know, to match the existing furniture in the room. The problem is that radius of that round over is like 1.5 inches, and you know, I thought about maybe going and buying a router bit that could do something like that, but you know, it's either really expensive or hard to find. So I took a little test piece. Just took a piece of scrap, and I was able to do the round over on it with just hand tools. I did this with using the bandsaw and a hand plane. So hopefully I can do the same thing for the big pieces without messing them up. I'm going to give it a shot. Draw out the radius on both sides. So to speed up the process, to get rid of some of this excess waste here, I'm just going to use the bandsaw to cut away the corners. Now unfortunately I don't have a real workbench, so I don't have a way of clamping this thing down. I got this crappy little bench here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw down a couple anchor spots, and I'm going to use some wedges to try and hold this piece while I hand plane it. Okay, so the hand plane's got it to a pretty rough, you know, semicircle, but it leaves some little facets behind. So I'm going to use a half-rounded card scraper to make it even a little more round than some sandpaper. Next here I'm just drilling some holes in the back sides of the rails that are part of the face frame. The face frame is going to be held together with pocket screws. You can't really see them. Now I'm going to assemble the face frame on the ground because I don't really have a work surface big enough to put it together. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting some glue on it and some CA glue. The CA glue is going to hold it, just temporarily, just long enough for me to be able to flip it over and tighten those screws up. Now we're going to do a test fit of the sides to this face frame and see how that tongue and groove system worked out. .43 3/4. Alright, let's cut the back pieces to 43 3/4. Okay, so I've taken all my measurements that I need for the distance I want between the shelves using some old man math and a piece of paper. So now I'm going to take it all back apart and I'm going to cut the dado grooves where all the shelves are going to go. Okay, I've taken my two sideboards and I've clamped them together and I've made sure that the bottoms are exactly aligned. And I'm doing that so now when I cut the grooves with a hand router, I want to make sure that they're exactly the same on both sides. That's why I'm cutting both at the same time. And my first mark here is going to be 13 5/16. Alright, we got all the dados cut for the shelves, and now I'm going to drill some pocket holes in the bottom, and that's going to attach this cabinet to a base that I'm going to make for it. Alright, so I got my side pieces all done. I sanded them down a little bit. Didn't think you really cared to see someone sanding. Now we're just going to go ahead and glue them to the face frame and start some assembly. While I wait for the glue to dry, I'll install these rear supports. Next I'm going to use a router with a rabbiting bit to put a rabbet all the way around my the back of the case, and that's where I'm going to drop in the 1/4 inch plywood that's going to make up the back. I also took a little block that I clamped onto the side, and that's going to allow my router to have a little bit of support while I go around the edge that's just 3/4 plywood. And since the rabbiting bit doesn't get into the corners here, I'm just going to use a chisel to square off all the corners. And now I'm going to measure for and cut the length of my shelves. Alright, the shelves fit nicely. So my next step is I'm just going to mark off here where I'm going to put some of this molding to cover up the ugly plywood. So I'm just going to cover it up with a little molding. So my next step is I want to make a frame here that the whole shelf is going to sit on, and the reason I'm doing that is the frame is going to mimic the molding that's on the original furniture. Basically I'm going to make a 2-layer frame, round over the edges, and it should look like that other piece, and then underneath that I will build the little round legs just like the other furniture, and hopefully that works out. I'm just going to glue up a couple of boards to make up the top for the bookcase. I'm just using a couple pieces of 8-inch poplar. I didn't have anything wide enough, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these up and make the top. So I'm up to one of the more challenging parts for me in this build of this bookcase. The existing furniture in the room has these little legs on it, and I wanted to reproduce that. I wanted to keep that theme. And so I've been just racking my brain. Made a blank, and I thought of like 10 different ways I could do this. You know, maybe I can, you know, put it in the drill press, and you know, I can either set up a tool rest to do it like a lathe, or maybe I could, you know, put a router on the side here and, you know, make my profile. I thought about doing it on the table saw. You know, there's all kinds of people that do some really creative stuff, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to break down. So I bought this little mini lathe from Rockler. You know, the price was really right, and 300 bucks, and they're having a sale where it comes with the bed extension. I never really saw myself as much of a lathe guy, because all the lathe people just, you know, they make bowls and pens, and that really never sparked my interest or anything. But you know, to do this project, it's coming in handy, and I might do a table with some turntable legs or something, who knows. So I'm kind of excited about it. Problem is, I don't know a damn thing about turning wood. Along with a lathe, I got these tools here from Rockler. They are the carbide ends, and I really would like to work with the traditional type tools, but there's a learning curve to that, and I really don't have the time to learn it at the moment. It's something I'd like to do in the future. And also, not only using the tools have a learning curve, but sharpening them is their own art form in itself, and I don't have the equipment to properly sharpen them. Hopefully eventually I'd like to work myself into using the traditional tools like roughing gouges and skew chisels and stuff like that. For right now, I'm going to see how these work out. Well, it's a lot smoother, and vibration has no vibration. I'm really surprised by that. Well, let's see if I can make this thing round. It is unbelievable how much of a mess this thing can make.
You've been a mess.
Tater, what are you doing? What are you doing?
The arm.
The other arm? Well, with as little as I know about lathes, I managed to get my legs made. After some sanding, they actually turned pretty good. They're pretty close to the original. From a distance, no one's gonna know the difference. I'm really happy with this little lathe for 300 bucks. Got the job done. I mean, it's no professional thing, but now I'm really excited about learning a little bit more about lathes. I can't wait to get some of the traditional tools and start learning how to use them. So to attach the legs to the base, what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to use a 3/4 inch dowel that I'm going to cut into sections and use it as a floating tenon. And then to drill that tenon, I'm going to use a Forstner bit. But first, I'm going to use a regular bit just as an indicator. So I can put a square up here. Make sure that my drill bit is square. Well, I was filming how I painted the furniture, and somehow my SD card has failed and I don't have that footage anymore, but realistically it's just painting and you don't really need to see that. But fortunately, thanks to the coronavirus, my son's gonna help me put this furniture together. We're gonna do a team project. You ready to do that?
Let's do it.
All right, bud, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put the legs into the base. So go ahead and grab that leg. Here's a hammer and just tap it down. A little harder. There you go. Let's get the other ones in, and then we'll put the shelving system on top. All right, we got it all centered up. Let's go ahead and put some screws in all these slots, and then we're going to screw it down to the base. So, grab some screws. Alright, let's put this on the lower setting so it doesn't tear anything up. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, push hard on it. Good. Go ahead and get this middle one over here. Good. Awesome, now we can go ahead and put in the first shelf on the bottom. This it needs to go in really straight. If it gets crooked, it won't get stuck. There you go. Alright, we got our shelf in, but you see how ugly the edge of the plywood is? We don't want that showing, so I got this little piece of trim that I already painted up, and we're going to go ahead and measure it so that we can put it in here. Sounds good?
Get the measuring tape.
Alright. Alright, bud, we're going to use a table saw to cut this trim piece, okay?
Alright.
So what's the first thing you're going to do?
First, we have to put our safety goggles on.
There you go.
Or glasses.
Alright.
And then we slide it over here to get it the correct angle.
The correct length.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to make sure we keep our hands away from the blade, right? So I don't care if someone comes up here, this is where you're going to pay attention. Okay, no matter what. Don't keep your eyes off this work area.
Okay.
If anything goes wrong, you take your hands away, push the kill, right? Are you ready? Alright, start the machine. Okay, bring it through, nice and slow. Alright, back it out. Alright, shut the machine off. Good. Alright, let's see if it fits. No, a little more than that. You gotta get some more. Squeeze it like you mean it. There. Alright, let's put it on the front.
Alright.
Get it on there. Alright, grab the caul. And just stick it right here. Alright, let's get some shelves going in here now. I'll put a little bit of glue in here. We don't really need a whole lot of glue because where is it going to go?
You just need a little thin line.
Just a little bit. Alright, and let's put it in the slot here. Has to come in all the way from the back.
Oh, I think this is the wrong way.
No, this is the right way. Alright, let's put the top on.
Alright.
I want it flush on the back. Go. See, I cut a groove all the way around, so we're just going to stick it in that groove. Grab that side. Okay. Is it in there?
Yeah.
There we go.
Right here?
Yeah. Okay. Right there. Well, folks, that concludes the build of our bookcase. I've really enjoyed doing this project, and it's really going to fit in well with the rest of the furniture that we have in our bedroom. I hope this has given you guys some ideas of some projects you might want to build on your own. And, you know, I'm no expert, and I can get it done, so I'm sure you can get it done too. Really, it's been fun to be able to share a little bit of time with my son so we can, you know, put this thing together. Anything you want to tell him?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
See you on the next project.